Well, I think 2010 is going to be a fascinating year. Obviously, we've got the election, probably in May, coming up. And that'll be a real turning point because at the moment, we're still in this pre-election period. People aren't really sort of saying what they really mean about the fiscal situation or the financial situation. But afterwards, if there's an emergency budget, we'll really start seeing some big changes. We'll probably start seeing some cuts. As a result, we'll probably start seeing some strikes. So it could be quite a difficult year politically, but yeah, a fascinating year nonetheless. Absolutely. I mean, before an election, you always have the situation where it's very policy light. People don't really want to say very much. But I think we need a clearer direction of travel from all the parties. You know, what do they plan on doing? The general principles, the broad principles after the election. We haven't got that yet. Well, I'm very worried that if there are big spending cuts, as there need to be to get rid of the £180 billion fiscal deficit, that will actually lead to sort of public sector strikes, as we saw during the winter of discontent, as we've actually seen in a few councils across the UK already. So we'll see a lot more striking going on, but that's a necessary part of cutting spending. And I think the public opinion will be on the side of the government who cuts spending, because people realise that households have tightened their belts, businesses have had to tighten their belts and become more flexible. So now it's the public sector's turn to do its role. I think they're all wrestling together really, and nobody's quite winning. You see the Conservatives inch ahead and then Labour. The election is still pretty much open. The Conservatives will probably win, but the question is, will they get in with a hung parliament and be in a very difficult situation? Will they get in with about 20 to 30 majority, which I personally think they will, or will they have a big majority to make big changes? They haven't yet sealed the deal with the electorate, and that's the key thing they've got to do between now and May. People don't want to see indiscriminate cuts. That's the key point. People want to see these sort of more wasteful, inefficient areas of government cut out. What we've seen over the past 10 years is a big increase in backroom staff, in the bureaucrats behind the public services. We need to trim back in that area. What we need to protect is the frontline services. People don't want to see fewer nurses, doctors, teachers and policemen. They want those protected, but they want the more non-essential areas of government to cut back. The first key demand is to remember that businessmen and entrepreneurs, they don't want high tax rates. Entrepreneurs are going to drive us out of the recession. They're the ones who are going to create jobs for us. So we don't want to tax them too heavily. So we want to see cuts in corporate tax after the election. But at the same time, we don't want big increases in personal taxation. There's been a big talk about increasing VAT to 20% or even more than that. And we don't want to kill off consumers' demand. So the big message is, forget the tax, we actually want the taxes cut. What we want is spending cuts. That's how they should solve the fiscal equation we're in at the moment. I think very much so, with some political guts. Yeah, absolutely. We've actually outlined ourselves how you can cut spending by 50 billion, and so it is perfectly doable.